What is the meaning of life? You know the crazy thing about that question? The harder you look for the answer, the more impossible it becomes. And the reason is because it's the wrong question. The question we should be asking is, how can I create a life of meaning? Hi, my name is Frank Verdun, and today I'm going to share the story of how I finally discovered my why, and more importantly, 3 big lessons I learned that can help you find your why too. Now, it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I discovered my why. And the only reason I searched for it in the first place was because it was given to me as a homework assignment by a business coach, of all things. Not a life coach, a business coach. And at the time, I had no idea how life-changing this particular homework assignment was going to be. Nor did I know how challenging it would be. I mean, it was so frustrating. It took me over a month to have any kind of a breakthrough. And I would sit there every morning with my journal out on my desk, a pen in my hand, just searching my mind, asking myself all these deep questions, thinking about all these different things, and just searching, like, what is it? What is the purpose? And the more I searched for it, the less I came up with. I couldn't figure out anything. The pages I was looking at were blank. And I remember knowing people who seemed to have their why all figured out. Like, for example, there was a girl that I knew of who was in college to become a virologist. And she said that when she was a young girl, she knew exactly what she wanted to do before she even knew what the word virologist even meant. She just knew as a young child that she wanted to learn about diseases and learn how to cure them. And then she spent the rest of her life in alignment with that purpose. And I remember thinking to myself, that's just not me. And I thought about my dad. So my dad found out he had cancer when I was 12, and then he passed away when I was 19, and I was so close to him. And losing him for any reason, much less cancer, but just losing my dad was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through in my life emotionally. And I thought for a moment in time that, okay, maybe I should support cancer research. That would be a noble cause for me. But then the more I thought about it, I just didn't feel a lot of passion around that. And then I felt guilty about that. Like, of all the things, why would I not want to make that my mission? But it just wasn't there. So this whole process of searching and not finding and searching and not finding and just going down all these dead ends it took my frustration and it turned it into discouragement. And then that discouragement started to feel like hopelessness. Like I just was one of those people who just didn't have a why. And then one day, it was in the morning, I had gotten into the habit of reading the Bible in the mornings for a short period of time and just made it part of my regular daily routine, which is a great habit to have, by the way, whether it's the Bible or anything positive or uplifting or spiritual or whatever. It's always good to start your day with something positive instead of just looking at social media or the news. Definitely not the news. And I read this verse, Psalms 1:3. Whoever delights himself in the Lord is like a tree planted by streams of water that bears its fruit in its season and whose leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. And when I read that verse on that particular morning, all of a sudden I just had this flashback. It was weird. An old childhood memory just came popping into my head. And this memory, it was like buried in my subconscious for decades without me really thinking about it. And at this moment, it just popped back up. And there I was, standing in my grandmother's yard when I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. And my grandmother had this cute little modest white brick house with a small yard in a neighborhood that was fenced in. And in the middle of this yard was a fig tree, but it wasn't an ordinary fig tree. This fig tree was amazing. It was very old and mature and very healthy. It was vibrant and it had a huge canopy of leaves. And when this thing was in season and producing figs, it was loaded with figs. I mean, loaded down with hundreds of figs. In fact, we could have fed the whole neighborhood with the figs from this one single tree. And my grandmother would give me these little buckets to go out there and just pick as many figs as I wanted to. And I remember picking figs and seeing the figs all over the ground, just littering the ground that would fall off the tree. And then I would take my bucket of figs inside and we would peel the figs and I would just eat as many figs as I could. And they were so delicious. They were, oh God, they tasted so good. Well, that was it. That was a memory, just a random memory from my childhood. But it wasn't so random because when this thing popped up and it connected with this Bible verse about the tree planted by streams of water. It was like two puzzle pieces, like boom, clicked in place. And when it happened, it was weird. I got this rush of emotion that came over me. My eyes started like welling up with tears and I started crying. And the only thing that I understood in that moment, in that one epiphany, I guess you would call it, was that I wanted my life to look like that fig tree. I wanted to have a life that was nourished from within, healthy, mature, vibrant, and abundant with lots of fruit. But not fruit just for me. I wanted to have so much fruit that I could share it with other people. And that metaphor became the beginning of my why. I didn't realize it at the time, but that's what it was. And then from there, I explored that more and I did journal about it and actually did have things to write down in my journal now. And I developed it and I started thinking how would this metaphor compare to my life. And I put this together and it's still with me today. I still refer to it today. I feel like I understand it a lot more clearly and a lot more deeply than I did back then. But it was the starting point. And what I'd like to do is share just the basic core principles of this image, to share it with you as an example, because you're unique and whatever why is your purpose is going to be very unique to you. But I would like for you to have an idea of where I'm coming from, what my why is about, to hopefully add some context to any content I create on this channel or whatever I do. I try to connect it to that why. So if you look at the image, at the bottom, you'll see the ground, a horizontal line going across. And the tree is above the ground in the sky, and everything below the ground would be the dirt and the roots. And the symbolism is that this ground level represents the surface of physical reality. So in other words, everything above the ground level represents the physical world that we live in, the material world that we can see and we experience our life in. Everything below the ground level is non-physical reality. So just like when you're walking through a garden or something and you see a bush growing out of the ground, you tend to think of the bush and you don't really think so much about what's below the ground because you can't see it. But everything below the ground is just as real as everything above the ground. And that's how I see reality. Our reality is a physical reality, but there's also a non-physical reality of souls and spirits and energies, life energy, things that we can't see, touch, or measure with some type of an instrument, but it's every bit as real as the physical world. And so I see myself being rooted in spirit, which to me means that I am a spiritual being that has temporarily manifested itself into the physical world as well, not a tree, but as me, as what you see here. And I'm here for a short period of time, just like the tree only lives for a certain amount of time. And based on my actions in the physical world, what I think, what I say, and what I do determines what type of fruit I produce. In other words, the outcome of my actions. And those fruit can be bad fruit, or they can be good fruit, depending on how I act, what I say, think, and do. The cool thing about this, and what was so liberating for me, was the fact that I can produce any kind of fruit I want. It's up to me. I get to decide. I want to be fruitful with my life. And I think this image encapsulates all that. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's great, Frank. But how does this help me? Like, how can this help me find my why? And that's what I'm so excited to share with you, because there's 3 important lessons in the story that I want to convey that I think can help you on your journey to find your purpose in life. Lesson number 1 is that the why is inside of you. In other words, it's not out there. It's not something you need to go searching for outside of yourself. You'll remember when I was talking about, I kept looking at other people and they had their whys figured out, and I would think about them and try to compare myself to them. I was comparing myself to all these other people who seemed to have their whys all figured out. And what I learned was that I needed to keep asking myself why over and over again. I was asked the question of, why are you in the real estate business? And my first answer was to make a lot of money. Well, then I had to dig deeper and say, okay, why is making money important? And I realized, well, it's not about money. The money gets me freedom. I'll have freedom of my time. And then I was like, well, why is freedom of time important? And then it really caused me to think even deeper. And so what you're doing when you keep asking why, or asking questions to get to the next thing. It's like you're peeling the layers of an onion off, one layer at a time. And what you're trying to do is get down to the core of that onion. So you just keep digging within yourself, looking for the answer, not outside of yourself. Lesson number 2 is to search with your heart more than your head. And what I mean by searching with your heart means to look for signs of emotion. Emotions, especially strong, deep-seated emotions, will express themselves physically in your body. So let's say, for example, you think of something really sad. Maybe you lose a loved one. Well, that feeling of loss is going to express itself in your body. You're going to get choked up. You're going to get teary-eyed. You're going to cry. You're going to just feel it in your body. And the same thing happens if you feel a really strong emotion of joy and happiness. It can also make you cry, but you're crying tears of happiness, not tears of sadness. Or if you get super excited about a particular idea, you might feel your body get tingly or goosebumps. Those are physical manifestations of emotions. And when you keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and you start to feel emotions swelling up inside of you, that's a good sign that you're getting close to your why. Number 3 is what I call the persistence patience paradox. That's a mouthful, I know. So let's break it down. Persistence. It requires persistence. You need to put focused effort into searching for your why. It's not going to pop up unless you're actually searching for it. But it also requires patience and receptiveness. So you need to be patient in the process. Like I said, it took me over a month to have my breakthrough. And during that month, almost daily, I was searching and searching and searching and coming up with dead ends. But when it happened, it was because of all that searching that I discovered it. It's like planting a seed in the ground. You have to put in the effort. You have to till the soil. You need to fertilize the soil. You need to plant the seed. You have to water it. Make sure it's the right temperature. Make sure it's getting enough sunlight, all that stuff. You create all these conditions. But even if you do a perfect job creating the perfect conditions for the seed to grow, you still have to be patient because the seed needs to grow at its own pace. It needs to germinate and then sprout. And then one day, when you're not even thinking about it, you'll look at the ground and you'll see this little thing poking up out of the dirt. Oh yeah, there's that seed I planted. Well, the same thing goes with finding these deep things inside of you, is that you'd have to balance the effort with surrender. You have to put forth focused attention, but then also create space in your mind and in your soul and your heart for that thing to develop and make itself known. And that's the paradox, because the idea usually comes to you when you're not searching for it. And there's tons of famous examples of this happening, like Albert Einstein. Many of his discoveries, including the theory of relativity, didn't come to him while he was actively searching for it, but when he would go out on these walks and just had his mind clear and open, boom, these things would come to him and make themselves known in his mind. A really cool example that I like a lot is Paul McCartney. When he woke up one morning and he had the melody for the song Yesterday. Yesterday, love was such an easy game to play. All right, I'm not a singer. I'm a terrible singer, actually. But that melody was so clear in his mind when he woke up that morning that he was convinced he must have heard that melody somewhere else, and he didn't want to plagiarize it. So he spent the next several weeks asking people that he knew and other people in the music business, have you heard this anywhere before? And after several weeks of searching, no one had ever heard that melody. So he realized it was actually an original melody. But it didn't come to him when he was searching for it. It just popped into his head one morning, clear as day. So that's how it works. It's a paradox. You have to actively search, but you have to be open and receptive for when it comes to you. Now, I want to close by saying that your search for your why is not just about you. There's a famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi that I love, and it's, "Be the change in the world that you want to see." Think about that. In fact, I challenge you to make it your homework assignment. Just like it was a homework assignment for me, I'm going to challenge you to make it a homework assignment for yourself. Contemplate, think about these questions. What change would you want to see in the world, and why? What moves you so deeply that you get emotional just thinking about it? And what type of fruit would you want to see in your life and in your world? I would love to get your feedback and your thoughts on this in the comment section below. You know, sometimes just putting your thoughts and your emotions into words can help to clarify your why. And if you'd like to continue on this journey with me, please subscribe to the channel and join our community of purpose-driven creators. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.